In this lesson, we will orient our vertebrae bones along the spline. So our next step then is to have each bone object point at the helper before it. And then in order to control its twisting, which is a very important step when setting up a spline rig, we can go ahead and work with up vector objects. So again, when you're setting up your spline rigs, the most critical part, in my opinion, is the twist rig that is integrated into the spline, simply because if we don't do it properly, well, our rig can collapse very easily, and that is not ideal for animation. So that's another reason why I'm really excited about sharing this rig with you. Not only will it be flexible, but it will be a very stable solution. So let's go ahead and head over to our Create panel. We'll create another helper. And what I'd like to do is go ahead and work with cross in this case. We've already used box. So I'll go ahead and create the cross helper and exit the tool. Let's go ahead and rename this. This is PT aim, since we're going to use this as our up vector object, followed by the name of the vertebrae bone. That's vertebrae A01. Okay, great. So at this point, I'll just go ahead and quick align this to the first vertebrae bone. All right, so now that that's in place, we're going to need to create a group, have that tied to this object. And just to give you an idea of what we're doing here, the group object is going to be connected to each of our original helpers. And then at that point, as the spline gets to form, of course, the groups will follow as intended along with these helpers, and that will in turn drive these up vector objects. So this is all in the end going to assure that each bone object, its twist axis, will be controlled ideally. All right, so we will have full control over the twisting of each of these bones. So let's go ahead and select our helper object and create our group. So here's the group menu, but of course we can always alt right click and choose the group tool from here. That's going to be GRP followed by the name of the object being group. So that's PT aim vertebrae A01. Okay, beautiful. Now of course the object will need to be selectable, so we need to select between the group and our helper. So let's go ahead and open the group. I've also added that command to this list. And the next step is to go ahead and move this object up so that the up vector can point correctly. Okay, great. So if we were to select our group, you could see its placement is exactly where it needs to be, right on top of the original helper. Let's go ahead and take the group and add it to objects to hide, as well as the helper. Okay, great. So now it's time to go ahead and clone these objects down the rest of the spine. I'll go ahead and hold down Shift and drag forward, and we'll create 6 more copies. All right, now at this point we can go ahead and use Shift A to align each of these groups to their respective helper. So we just want to take our time and make sure we are doing this right. No need to rush. Well, sometimes there's a need, but right now it's not the time. Okay, so we have all of these aligned. It's also a good idea to check your perspective view from time to time just to make sure everything is aligned the way it needs to be. Great. All right, so back to our side view. The next step then is to go in and link each of these groups to the helpers that should drive them. So I'll just go ahead and grab the link tool and link. Remember to go in and rename each group as well as the up node. Don't want to overlook that step. It's very easy to do. So once all of these have been linked, it's now a good idea to freeze transforms. That way, if we accidentally move our group object and it needs to be popped back to the spot it was created in, it's just a matter of alt-right clicking and choosing transform to 0. So I'll just go ahead and marquee select and grab all of these objects at the top. Alt-right click and choose freeze transform. Now if we were to grab one of these groups, move it over here, and say, oops, I didn't want it there, we can always alt-right click and choose transform to 0 to pop it back. All right, great. So all groups have been linked. Let's go ahead and check this out. We'll grab our spline. We will head over to our vertex subobject and start to move these. Great, everything is moving exactly the way it should, except for, of course, our bone objects. All right, so let's say we go ahead and take care of that now. What we'll do is, again, set up look at constraints so that each bone can look at the helper before it, and then the up node will be, of course, our brand new helper. So we'll go ahead and start with vertebrae A with the bone selected. We're going to alt-right click, grab our look at constraint, and then look at the helper before it. Now going to our motion panel, we should already be under the rotate list. Let's scroll down. What I like to do is turn off view line length absolute. Reason why is that creates a line, and it's a great way to keep track of your object's angle, the direction it's pointed at. However, it tends to kind of get in the way at times because it creates a very long line. So we'll just go ahead and hide that. And then next, we'll need to set up a few properties here. So our up node control, we'll want that to be set to look at, so we can look at this helper. Now, as far as the node we should use, well, of course, that's the helper object instead of the world. So I'll go ahead and uncheck world, go ahead and click on none, and grab the helper. All right, so if we were to take a look at this, let's go to our perspective view for that. We can grab the up vector object and start to move that, and notice we get some twisting. Very nice. Now what happens if we grab our spline, go back to our vertex subobject, grab the vertex of vertebrae B and start to move that. Notice the bone will aim properly. Very cool. So that's basically the same steps for the rest of our bones. So we'll want to do that in order to kind of finish up. So again, the process, if we were to head back over to our side view, is to go and select the bone object after we exit our subobject level. Grab our bone object, apply the look at constraint, we look at the helper before it, and now going to our properties, we can go ahead and turn off the view line length. We'll go ahead and set the up node control to look at, uncheck world, and then redefine our up node as the helper object. So that's the same steps for the rest of our objects. I'll go ahead and leave that to you. And in the following lesson, we're ready to start working on our animation controls for the vertebrae.